Okay, so we're live. So hello, Catherine. And,
Hi.
Thank you so much for agreeing to come on this call and to chat about your recovery story. We're going to wait a moment for people to join us. It's going to be recorded anyway so that people can watch it afterwards, and then it'll be put on YouTube and the website. But okay, so it was about I think we said nearly a year ago that you actually came to see me.
Yeah.
And I haven't seen you since last September.
Yeah, no news is good news.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So do you want to start off, Catherine, by maybe not even necessarily, I know when you had a specific incident that your pain started in your sacroiliac joint, but I know you afterwards you realised you'd had quite a few symptoms that you realised were mind-body. So how, looking back, starting from childhood, what sort of symptoms have you experienced, or even as an adult?
I think, you know, my earliest memories were always of my lower back area. And I can remember as far back as being in primary school and sitting on the assembly floor, and we all had to sit cross-legged, and I just really struggled to ever get comfortable. And I guess I just always put that down to, like, I'm quite tall, I'm 5'9". I was always taller than my friends. So I thought, oh, it'd probably just be that. And, you know, whatever, maybe I'm just not doing enough exercise, and just little minor symptoms like that. And as I got a bit older, I noticed that that would be a little bit more prominent. But it wasn't until I was probably my late teens that I had, I guess, what I would used to refer to as like a proper episode where it really affected me. And I think between that time I would have, you know, symptoms that were worsening a little bit. Like I'd get up from bed and my lower back would just take a while to, I guess, wake up. It felt very weak. And again, I just put that down to, like, I was a tummy sleeper and I'd read that was bad for your back. So I was like, obviously it's just that. But nothing that was like really affecting my life in a big way. So I just ignored it and put it down to something that I just have. And then in my late teens, I had the major incident that you're referring to, which was I was dancing around my mum's living room with a friend, probably to Madonna or something, as you do, and just messing about, and I'd turn in a certain way and I heard some kind of audible noise. I don't know, like a pop or a crack or something. And in that sort of SI joint, sacroiliac joint area in my lower back. And I just thought, oh, like, have I done something? I was quite nervous and I tensed up and I was like, what have I done? And it was okay. It was a bit sore. But by that evening, I literally couldn't move. I couldn't stand up straight. I couldn't turn in bed. I spent the night in my mum's bed, just like really terrified of what I'd done. And then in the morning, she took me to like a physio at a local gym who essentially said, you've displaced your SI joint. I didn't even know what that was at the time. And it's probably down to like core strength issues, and you just need to get stronger in your core. And she did some various manipulation and said, oh, it's all back in position. And from then on, in my head, I just had this image of this joint that could come out of position. And immediately, and I remember her words, she said, but don't start walking funny, because that could cause lots of weird and wonderful things. And of course, that just did the opposite. And I just kept trying to protect. And that was probably the beginning of the end for me at the time. It all kind of snowballed from there. So
basically, sacroiliac joint is, it was only one side, was it, that you had?
Yeah, my right side.
So it's part of your pelvis, and it's a joint that really is like this, sort of well fitted together. It really is a very strong joint. And although, yes, there are times when you can have some laxity in the muscles, especially when you're pregnant, but that it's very rare for it actually to sublux, to actually really be able to, because it's such a strong joint. But yeah, so obviously something acute had gone on then, but at the time, you know, even we can have acute pain even when there isn't a physical problem as well. So but obviously you wouldn't have been aware of that at the time. So that was, when was that?
I think I was probably about 17.
Right. Okay.
So now.
Okay. So a good few years ago now. And that carried on being a problem, didn't it?
Yeah. So on and off. At first I thought it's probably hopefully just going to be a one-off, and I just kind of got on with life. And then I would start to have more of these so-called episodes, and it would just, probably when I look back in times of stress, but my lower back would just completely start to lock down to the point where, like, as soon as it started, I knew I had less than 20 minutes to get home, you know, to lie down. And it would take me anything between a week and 2 weeks to be able to actually stand up straight.
Really?
And at this point, I'm like 20.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what is going on? And so from there, I just started to see, I mean, this was probably every 4-5 months at this point this was happening.
Right.
So I started to see more physios and things like that. And all of them gave me the same diagnosis. We think you have SI joint dysfunction. Some of them said they thought I had hypermobility, where you're really bendy, and they said that can cause it. Others said that I could have fallen, which I bought into because I used to horse ride a lot when I was young. Others said I could have just been born that way. I even thought, oh, maybe it was because I was breech before I was born, and maybe my legs are in a funny position. My mum mentioned that. And I was like, oh, that could be it. But yeah, they all had the same diagnosis. And of course, I totally believed it, because I thought, well, these are experts and they all have the same opinion. And they all told me that apart from core exercises to manage it, it would never go away. And so basically, I started to tailor my life around the symptoms. My life just over the years, as the symptoms got worse, my life just got smaller. I remember even in my job, I was in quite a high profile job working with high profile clients, which I really enjoyed. But we would have to go and see these clients. We're based outside of town, and we'd have to go see them quite regularly. And I started to find excuses why I shouldn't be the one to go, because that would mean going on a train, running between trains, standing for long periods of time, and that could trigger my symptoms. And I didn't want my boss to know, because that could jeopardize my job. So everything, all the choices I was making were based around my symptoms.
So it really becomes quite restrictive, doesn't it? I just want to say hello to people who've joined us now. And if you've got any questions as we're going along, then do just pop them in the comments box, and we'll answer them when we get to them. But in the meantime, I think you had quite a few other symptoms off and on, didn't you?
So I started to develop an issue with my left foot, which I then thought was because of compensating for my back. And that's what physios told me I was probably doing. And my foot just got progressively worse. So I started to see, again, more experts. And it went on for a span of about a year where I couldn't weight bear on my foot. So I lost my job. I had to give up my job because it was in London. I couldn't cope anymore. I was put in air cast boots on and off of crutches. I remember sitting on a train in this air cast boot in the heat of summer, months of this, and nobody knowing what was wrong with my foot. And I just thought, I can't mentally cope with this anymore. I'm going to have to give up my job. I was very depressed. I moved in with my mum. I was with my husband. Well, I don't think we were married yet, but I was with my now husband, Chris, but he was working all hours, and I needed someone to help me, you know, physically around. So cooking and things. So I moved in with my mum. So that was really hard on my relationship. I ended up seeing people at the top of their game. I saw a foot surgeon who treated Olympic athletes. So I was like, if anyone's going to know, he's gonna and I didn't know. And he set up a whole, they have these meetings for people with strange, weird and wonderful cases. And I was, of course, one of those. And I sat in a room, everyone looked at my scan with, you know, questionable faces, and nobody had an answer for me.
Wow. Which
obviously was very depressing, because I was in my 20s and I couldn't function properly. And I remember I was so physically drained with it by the end, because it was painful, and I just were going on crutches for this long. My hands were red raw, and I ended up borrowing a friend's wheelchair. And I look back and I think that was a mental thing, because I was just so tired. I didn't want to keep going around struggling. And yeah, it became really, really difficult. And I was meant to be getting married at the end of that year as well. And I didn't. We got to the point where my mum suggested putting rhinestones on my air cast boot very seriously, because I didn't think I'd be able to walk up the aisle. And it wasn't until nearing the wedding that a local physio just said, oh, I just think you've got plantar fasciitis, which everybody else said I didn't have, which is when the tissues kind of swell in your foot, apparently. And he just gave me some orthotics, some simple slip-in inserts, and said to me, that's going to change the way you walk, and it'll offload your foot, and you're going to be fine. And the next day I could walk, which now looking back is ludicrous. But I thought, oh, these orthotics have cured me. You know, they're letting my foot heal, and the whole foot thing went away. You know, and
wow, overnight,
pretty much.
Wow.
And which was good timing because I had my wedding in like 2
Yes.
months. But yeah, just it was a mental thing of, oh, I'm safe now wearing these orthotics, and it went away. But now looking back, obviously that's all just TMS moving about. But
but how it just goes to show how important what we as health professionals say to our clients is, you know, it's so important to give people hope. And you know, from what you were saying, you know, that no wonder that increased and continued, because there was no hope, there was fear, confusion, nobody seems to know what's going on, and at your age as well at the time. Wow.
Yeah, it's terrifying, and you just think, I'm going to be like this forever.
Damaging. Yes.
Because the top surgeons don't know what's wrong with me and can't help me. And I remember one just saying, I'm sorry, you'll have to go and live with this, because, you know, it is what it is. It is, and it's so hard on your family. You know, my mum was just so worried about me and helping me in day-to-day life all the time, and it affects everybody in your circle as well.
So it's interesting, though, then you say that it went virtually overnight, and yet, so clearly it was even if it was plantar fasciitis, which is another mind-body condition, clearly that having that hope and that belief and the placebo effect just managed to just shift things. That you lost your fear, and then it's an improvement from then on when that happens.
I'm a very visual person as well, and I think
that could be good and not so good.
Yeah, it's gone against me. And you know, there was this little thing on my foot scan that they kept referring to as a little bean shape, which is probably just something in my body, you know. But
yes,
I would look at those scans. What is it? You know, really focus in on that scan. And that went against me because I was imagining what it could be, how it was causing me pain. But then obviously being able to visualize the orthotics offloading made me feel relaxed and safe and went in my favor. So and then
when it came to the sacroiliac joint dysfunction, then I would imagine you again were visualizing that and how awful that was, and you know, imagining the impact when you're walking and the impact that would have on your joint.
Definitely. And I was at one point given a sacroiliac joint belt because I was told that my issue was so severe that I had to wear this belt 24/7 to do anything, whether that be hoovering or exercising or just functioning, cooking.
Wow, 24/7.
Yeah, and it was, I remember my skin, because it has Velcro on it, my skin was just, my mum looked at my skin and like almost cried because it was just like red raw where I was wearing this thing all the time. And that gives you the mental picture of like, if I let this, if I take this off, I'm going to fall apart. You know, they said my ligaments were so damaged that I would just, you know, not be able to function without it, and just it would get worse. So I just had this reliance on this belt.
Wow. And then no wonder when you got pregnant, it then continued and got worse.
Yeah, so I got pregnant with my lovely Harvey, who's now 5. And I was very sick in the beginning, which can be very normal, obviously. And then once that had passed, I remember getting up one day and thinking, I feel so much better, I'm going to clean the house. So I remember bending down to get some cleaning products from under the sink, and my lower back was just like, hi, remember me? And just felt very weak and just kind of went on me. And it just got progressively worse from that 12-week mark. By the time I was, I guess, 20 weeks pregnant, I couldn't straighten up. I was like at a 90-degree angle. My back was in a constant spasm. I remember crawling heavily pregnant up my mum's stairs because I couldn't walk up there. I saw physios again, rheumatologists in desperation. And they just said, you know, this is just your issue, and it's because of all the pregnancy hormones and the baby weight and everything, and you're going to just have to get through it. Wear your belt, you know, and which didn't even really fit at that point with the big bump. And, you know, and I remember just like being on a good day, I could just about walk uncomfortably from the house to the car. And on a bad day, I just was on the floor, on my mum's floor, you know, unable to move. And I had a very stressful pregnancy for other reasons also. So it was a very horrible time, very fearful time. And I hoped that after I had my son, it would then get better. But unfortunately, it didn't really. And I basically couldn't care for my baby I had to rely on my parents, especially my mum and my stepdad. I just basically was at their house all the time because I couldn't even hold him standing up, and he was like 7 pounds. So it was a very upsetting time where I couldn't even care for my new child on my own, you know?
Yeah. And that's, I mean, your mood must have really affected your mood as well.
Oh, yeah. I felt very depressed, very anxious. Am I ever going to get better? And although there were slow improvements and ups and downs, and I was functioning day to day, I was functioning in a very uncomfortable way and in a very restricted way. I wasn't really living a life. I was living to do all the basics for my son, and I'd go and see my family in the car, and that was basically all I could manage. And that went on for probably 3.5 years.
Right.
Until I came across the mind body stuff.
And how did that happen?
So I was seeing a psychologist anyway. I'd recently lost my granddad, who I was very close to. So I wanted to just talk to someone about that. And then we got talking about other things. And then we got talking about my back. And looking back, I can see that she was like, this is a mind, body, emotional thing. But she obviously wasn't. It's important not to push that on someone if they're not ready. And I wasn't ready to hear that or see that. And she gave me a little book. It was like Sarno's book, but it was like a reduced version, like a little mini version. And she said, why don't you just have a little read of that and see what you think? And I went home and I read it, and I thought it was very interesting because I did psychology at university. So from that point of view, I thought this is fascinating, but I didn't see that it was me. And I basically that was it for about 2 years, and I just sidelined it. And I still don't really know why I went back to it a couple of years later. For some reason I did, and I dug it out the bookshelf, and I just resonated with everything, and I saw myself, and I was just ready to see that. And I read it back. I got his full book, read it back to back, went online, researched, found Surfer, found you, immediately emailed you, and that was kind of the start of everything.
Absolutely. Wow. But isn't it sad that you had to go through all that before then finding out that actually, yes, that it was a mind-body condition that you could then work with and resolve?
And really, and I think a lot of people say this, who have recovered, is that really they had to get to their very bottom of desperation where they tried everything else and it hadn't worked, because it is very hard to get your mind around the idea that everything these sort of medical experts have told you is not correct. And to accept that, it can be hard. And I think you almost have to feel like it's your only other option. Not always, but I found that, I think for me, I thought, well, I've tried everything else.
Yeah, so I agree. I think for many people it's getting to that end point, and it's like, well, they must, lost hope, and then they come across it and then they're not ready. Also, like with you, you read the book, you weren't ready. Something called you back to that book, and awareness, something showed that you were going to be more ready this time. And it takes that time. And sometimes once you've learned about something like this, you then begin to see what's going on. And that might be the change around as well. If you're not aware, if you read something that says, what was going on in your life at the time when the pain came on, and you've never even thought of that before, then actually then in your life and your pain is worse one day, you're more likely to think, okay, what's going on? If not then, afterwards. And that's when you start joining the dots. So the seed sowing is really important for so many people.
Definitely. And now I know that I can look back and think, okay, what was going on at that time in my life? And what was stressful for me at that time. I went through a lot of bullying when I was younger, a lot of self-esteem issues. My parents did divorce when I was quite young. So there's a lot of changes going on there. A lot of things happened that I can now relate back to when the pain started. Difficult relationship when I had that particular episode, big episode, things like that. So I can relate back now, but it's sometimes difficult when you don't have that knowledge at the beginning to see the connection.
Absolutely. And I think you said at one point when the back spasm came on, that you were in a job that you didn't like as well.
Yeah, I was in a very stressful job. I was young and I had a lot of pressure on me. And I didn't feel like I was given any confidence in that job. In fact, quite the opposite. So yeah, there would have been a lot of self-esteem issues, stress issues, anxiety issues that now I can see would have definitely been very scary emotions for me at the time.
Absolutely. So I think it just shows it's often not one trigger, is it? Or it could be a minor little trigger, but that might be a tiny little thing that just triggers something from an old learned neural pathway, or it could be a physical event, it could be an emotional event, it could be that somebody you see reminds you of something uncomfortable from the past. There's all sorts of different triggers, aren't there?
Oh, definitely.
It shows that it's all the whole lifestyle, not just current but past stuff as well.
Definitely.
And remember when you started with me and you filled in the pre-assessment forms, I think you ticked virtually all the boxes for the personality traits as well that can cause self-induced stress. Yeah,
definitely. Yeah, I mean, I was quite textbook. But that's kind of nice for me in a way, because I was like, okay, that's like affirming to me that I'm in the right place. Yeah. And then once you understand that, you can excuse me, start noticing more when something like that happens. And I think it's really interesting, and it's sort of behaviors, it's personality traits, beliefs, all these can be a trigger, and there's certainly ways of increasing self-induced stress. But once we're aware of it, then we can do something about it. Might not always be easy. In fact, I remember on one occasion, one of mine, it's less so now, but one was my need to be on time. Have to be on time, because I grew up with that and learned that, you know, it's rude not to be on time. And I remember at one occasion before the 2012 Olympics, and they were bringing the torch through our town, and I'd agreed to meet some friends about an hour before it was due, and to stand on the side of the road waiting for them to come. And it was a Sunday. My husband was in Sunday mode, so he was dawdling. Then we realized there were loads of roads closed. And I was looking at my watch and thinking, we're going to be late. And we said we'd meet at 12 o'clock or whatever. And then I paused and I went, okay, I slowed my breathing right down. I went, okay, that's interesting. Where's this come from? Why are you suddenly thinking you're going to be late? All you're doing, Georgie, is meeting a group of friends on the side of a road. Don't think it's going to bother any of them if we rock up a little bit late. But what I did do, I did take action, and I actually just messaged them in our group and just said, oh, sorry, just running a bit late. See you soon. Nobody had even left the house by then. You will be first.
So if I hadn't caught myself doing it and then been able to look at it and rationalize it, then I would have been really stressed by the time I got there, and that could have triggered a headache or foot pain or whatever. So I think it's when we know that we can do something. And I think you had a few experiences like that, didn't you? And I think what's good about this is especially if somebody doesn't just get better like that, because actually it's being given learning opportunities that can be so useful. And I know you had quite a few of those as we were working together. Things that
like
you were doing.
Aha moments, I call them, when I was working with you. And just went reading a book, and I'd be like, oh, oh, that's what I'm doing. And that's why, you know, and it's like lots of those kind of add up to the whole bigger picture. I know my foot, I said, was a kind of quick recovery, but that still flares up sometimes. And I know what's going on now. But with my back, it wasn't an immediate. It was, you know, it was, and I do still have to sometimes think about it, but very few and far between now, luckily. But it wasn't overnight, and it is a journey.
And these are neural pathways that have been learned, so circuits all around in the nervous system that have become learned and sensitized. It's like you can't unlearn riding a bike. It's there, you know how to do it. It's just they're not activated all the time. And that's what we're working on here is, you know, those neural circuits are there, but what we don't want to do is have them activated all the time. But if we, and so many people, all of us, I would say, sometimes go back into the old patterns, you know, maybe, you know, putting more stress on ourselves, or some of the old behaviors, personality traits kick in. And of course, there are going to be times, especially when everything sort of shit hits the fan, as they say, when we might get the odd symptom. But it's about recognizing then, like you said, yes, occasionally your foot pain comes on. That's because the neural pathways have been triggered again. And then it's looking at, okay, so what's going on, which I'd never thought of before doing this work. You know, what's going on in my life at the moment? What am I not dealing with?
No, exactly. It's a totally different approach, because for me, it would have been, oh, let's sit down and rest that foot, ice the foot, you know, like wait until it gets better. And then that would stress me out, because I've got to be at work. I've got to pick Harvey up from school, you know, and that's just feeding the issue. But that's the approach I would have originally taken. But I think what I have to be careful of now is I'm very aware, I'm very on top of my back. But as we know, TMS can move and be sneaky. And I recently had COVID about 7 weeks ago, and I had all very, you know, COVID-y symptoms. But then we got to, like, you know, 6-7 weeks later, and some of them were hanging around. And it took me a little while to clock what was going on. But then I thought, aha, I know what you're doing. This is TMS. And I emailed you and said, oh, I might like to do a little session with someone and work through this, which is what I did. And yeah, this week it's gone. And I think, you know, it's always a journey of, like, and it is just about your approach to it. And being aware of, you know, once you're aware of TMS and that's what's going on, it's so much easier.
Absolutely.
That knowledge of what to do and what's going on, really.
And so how has that changed, one, you as a person and your life? And by the way, if anybody's watching and they want to ask any specific questions, please do post a comment and we will answer them. But yeah, so how's it changed you and what you are able to do in your general lifestyle?
It's changed me just because I totally look at, again, everything differently physically. I still can be very kind of have health anxiety. But it's changed me in the sense that I can then realize that how that's connected with TMS, and that it doesn't control me. I can control it. I can get it under control. I know where this is coming from, and I know why, and I know how to deal with it. And so it's taken a huge amount of fear out of my life. When it comes to my back, it's just totally taken away all the fear. I just feel like I lived in fear, and now I don't. And it's as simple as that. I don't have to think, oh God, you know, if we book a holiday, what happens if I have an episode and I can't go? You know, I just book a holiday. So it's just, you know, it's taken that worry and that fear out of my life. And so when you're someone with less fear, you have less anxiety and things. And
your world opens up, because I remember you saying at the beginning, your world closed in and you weren't able to do much, but it sounds like you're doing anything you want to now.
If I don't want to do something, it's because I just don't want to do it. But, you know, I can do whatever I want to do. And I was saying to you silly things like just going to the playground with my son, and he's like, Mummy, jump off the pirate ship, you know. And I'd be like, no, Mummy can't do that because of her back. Whereas now I just jump off the pirate ship. And it's silly things like that where they seem like small things, but they're just dictating everything you do in your life. And now I don't have to worry about that. Also, I've always wanted to have another baby, but I didn't do it because of how awful it was. And I truly believed that it would be the same because it was a physical thing in my mind. It could be worse because I've already damaged my body, you know, like the first time. So, you know, my son is 5 and we haven't had another one. And that broke my heart because I've always wanted to be a mum ever since I was a kid. And I had a vision of this family and I couldn't do it because I didn't feel it was fair to me or my son, because how would I cope for him if I was in that state again? Now I'm actually 12 weeks pregnant. And I'm going into it with no fear that I'm going to go through that again. And that to me has just made everything, I mean, my son's face yesterday when we told him, I was like, it's just been worth everything, you know, to see that. And I'm so happy and feel all emotional now. But it's just, I wouldn't have done it. And now there's going to be a life that wouldn't have been here. So I don't see how you can get any better than that.
No, absolutely. How fabulous for you and all your family. And your mum's here as well. She said, hello, this is Kim, Catherine's mum. Having lived through this with my amazing daughter and the desperation we felt, I just wanted to say what you have achieved together is nothing short of a miracle. It has given Catherine her life back, and I thank God every day that she found you. I'm starting the course myself next week. Fabulous, Kim. That's really lovely to hear. Thanks, so thank you. That's wonderful. Oh, I love this. So Annette says, my apologies. I accidentally Oh, accidentally, I can see angry emoji. Must have pressed by accident. I'll try and get rid of it. Should be a smiley face. Excellent talk. Okay. Thank you both. That's fine. Thank you, Annette. And Turkin says, best wishes to you, Kim. Turkin is another lady who's done so well with this. It's wonderful.
Oh, great.
Kim, your mum's crying.
Obviously. That's what mums do.
But it's so lovely, and it's so wonderful to have people in your family who understand this. And I know many people who watch this, many of our practitioners, myself included, when you have family members that just don't believe it, don't get it, dismiss it, it's really challenging. But it's a good opportunity for growth, as I often remind myself, because, you know, how can they understand unless they're willing to actually look at the information, the evidence base, and explore it for themselves? So I can understand that it's really hard to change beliefs, and all we're trying to do is sow some seeds, influence people. You cannot convince people. But having somebody on your side, Catherine and Kim, having Catherine who's gone through it, how wonderful for you. Because you will, Catherine will be able to be a support for you and help you with this, which is wonderful.
And I was very lucky because, you know, my mum always advocated for me and helped me get to see whoever I believed I should see next, and was through the whole journey with me. And then,
wonderful.
You know, when I said I'd found you, she believed in it all and was fully behind me. And wonderful. I think if you do have someone like that who can believe it with you, brilliant. Yes. But if you don't, the best way to get there is just to do it. Yes. And everyone see the results for themselves. You can't deny the results, and just take that little first step. Because I didn't fully, you can't go into something fully believing it at the beginning, but just I just read everything I could and just look at success stories that are like you, and just start and see how you go. Yeah,
absolutely. I think that's so true. And now, message from Holly, your friend Holly.
Oh, she's on.
She's on. Catherine's best friend since 3 years old. Oh, how wonderful. I wish I'd had best friends from that age. I can't tell you how much of a difference I see in Catherine. It's truly wonderful. That's so lovely.
Thanks,
Holly. Thank you. Because I think especially messages from people like that, people who know you well, again, helps reinforce it for people who may be new to this.
Yeah.
And I think so that's, you know, I'm sure this will be really helpful. Thank you, Kim and Holly, for saying that, because people watching this, there will be people new to it thinking, oh, I don't know, you know, just being either on the fence or just not believing it. But actually, when you have your family members there and friends saying that what a difference there is, I think that's important.
Just ask my husband. Yes. He's been through it all with me as well. And he's just like, you're just a different person.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's life-changing, and it's not always easy, and you'll have ups and downs throughout the process where you doubt things, and that's human. But it's part of the journey. And I was fearful to come on as a success story originally, because I was concerned that what if in the back of my mind, what if I regress and I'm phony? And I thought, this is really important part of my acceptance that I'm better.
Yes,
to
absolutely.
Make that commitment to go on and speak as a success story, because it reaffirms to me that I am one. And I think, it's just an amazing place to get to. And if I can do it, anyone can do it, because I was so convinced it was physical, so convinced.
And I remember as you were going along, there were times when you were challenged more, because you had a young son that you were looking after as well. And I think that was challenging at times, wasn't it? And having for you to, on your emotions, which then impacted your stress levels in your body.
Harvey's the best, but he didn't sleep. We found out he had issues with his adenoids and tonsils that we didn't know at the time. So he basically never slept, which in itself is emotionally draining, physically draining. And it caused a lot of behavioural stuff, because obviously he wasn't sleeping. And it was just a really difficult time. And he went through, you know, as all kids do as well, just a lot of tantrums. And that brings up a lot of emotions in you. And I remember you saying to me, I think, the way you stay calm for him and mother him, do it for yourself. And that really hit home to me as well, because I put everything into sort of him and calming him down and reassuring him, making him feel safe. I don't do it for myself.
Yeah.
So that was another little aha moment. And but when you're a mum, you give everything to your kid, and you don't often make time for yourself, and that will just feed all the symptoms and everything. So you have to make, that was part of my journey, was figuring out a way to be mum, and almost just not be a mum to myself, but because I've got a lovely mum, but you do almost have to look at yourself in that way and care for yourself.
Mother your inner child. Absolutely.
Inner child. So it can be tough when you're a parent, but it's doable.
Yes. No, that's great. And there was something went through my mind then. I think when we spoke before we started, you said something about, you felt you'd lost your identity. And I think that is part of it, isn't it? And people often feel that. And yet when you start to recognize that if we don't put ourselves first, how can we be there for everybody else? We'll wear ourselves into the ground, and therefore are we being as good a mother as we can be, or wife or daughter or whatever, if we're so wound down, ground down, that we don't have the energy or the capacity for compassion, empathy, or whatever. So I think it really is important to look at ways that we can manage that. So Annette's saying, congratulations, Catherine, on your pregnancy. And that's great, Mum Kim. I'm on the journey, working with a self practitioner now. That's wonderful, Annette. Thanks for the encouragement that it has ups and downs. I needed to hear that. I've managed to put a love emoji now. Great.
Yeah, it definitely has ups and downs. I had some difficult days where I doubted and struggled, but I realized now that was just part of the progress.
Yeah, because these things happen. The main thing is not that it happens, but what can you learn from it? And from the learning from it, then you get stronger. You can't unlearn what you've learned. And so some of the people I've seen with the most horrendous setbacks have made wonderful improvements after that. So it is like climbing a mountain, but doing it bit by bit, but you're going in the right direction. And it's remembering this is today, this too shall pass, basically.
Definitely. And just believing in the process.
Absolutely. Okay, well, I think we're going to call it a day now, but thank you, all of you, for your comments. That's fantastic. And thank you, Catherine. I know this is going to be really helpful for so many people.
Well, thank you. I'm so glad I found you. And I'm just, really pleased to be here and sharing and hopefully help someone else.
You will. I'm sure you'll be helping quite a few other people.
If anyone ever wants to contact me through you, I'm very happy to talk as well.
Oh, that's lovely. Thank you very much, Catherine. So I'll remember that. Lovely.
Okay. Thanks, Georgie.
Take care, everybody. Bye.
Bye.